Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Cody Collins with the Yo, is this podcast where we get inquiries sent in to us by fans. And based on those inquiries, they are real life situations. And we determine that if these real life situations are something that are a current day issue in our society, or if they're a bit of an over exaggeration from the fan who sent them in. Today, we have a entry from Brad, who is a second year student majoring in business at The Ohio State University. That's really awesome. Um, and here is what Brad wrote about. He said that during his second year at The Ohio State University, when heading to his class in the afternoon, he would take a cab OSU bus from the parking lot where his car was parked to a building that was a much closer walking distance to his classes. He said that there were normally many other residents and students that rode the same bus as him. Um, One day, when he was riding the bus, he noticed that the spacing of riders in the seats in the bus seemed a little bit more unusual than normal. He eventually realized that the riders of the bus had purposefully sat as far away from a black passenger seat as possible. Many of the other riders were grouped closely together towards the back of the bus, while the black man sat closest to the driver in the front of the bus. One of the main reasons that Brad had never originally thought anything of this situation was due to the fact that the COVID-19 guidelines were being strictly enforced at this time, and all of the passengers were enforced to socially distance from one another accordingly. And Brad is wondering if this situation is racist due to the COVID guidelines being enforced during the situation. Now, let's take a couple seconds to unpack this information, right? So we have a black passenger at the front of the bus. We have the passengers of separate races, right? This could be Caucasian, Indian American, Asian American, right? Any other race of separate races, right? They were sitting towards the back of the bus, right? They were grouped together, um, sitting towards the back, not evenly dispersed, but grouped all together as one, right? Now, let's think about these COVID guidelines, right? The social distancing, the mask wearing, the untimely amounts of sanitization that are necessary or were necessary in during those times, right? Now, one of the main reasons that I believe these COVID guidelines were not the cause of this issue is because if the social distancing was something that was being strictly enforced on that bus ride. The passengers of the other races would not be sitting in the back of the bus in one big group, right? If the social distancing was being strictly enforced, then all of the passengers would be evenly dispersed throughout the bus, right? Each person would be evenly dispersed in seats throughout the bus. Um, this is why I believe that the black male who is sitting in the front of the bus is being purposefully avoided by those people that are sitting in the back in that big group, right? This is why I believe that the COVID guidelines did not play a role in the grouping of the seats and where the passengers were sitting in the bus. Now let's relate this to a theory, right? Simone de Beauvoir, she was fighting for gender inequality, right? She was fighting for gender inequality because she felt as though women were being treated differently than men, right? She proposed a theory that discussed that gender inequality in terms of the one and the other, right? So the one would be someone who's considered as higher in class, in power, right? Someone who thinks that they have rights over someone else, right? Someone who believes that they have the control of a situation, right? Someone who believes that they are above everyone else, right? Someone who believes that they are above that other category, right? The other category, so we have our one who's of higher power, higher class, right? And then when we compare that to the other is someone who's considered as lower class or with lower power, right? Someone that will follow the one due to the fact that they consider themselves as someone with lower power, right? They are the ones that assimilate or fall into the category of the other because they feel as though their opinions are not voiced, not heard, and they only are able to follow the opinions of the one, right? Now, in terms of the one and the other, right? In de Beauvoir's specific situation, the one would be considered as the male party, whereas the other would be considered as the female party, right? The person who is feeling as though they don't have control in the situation is listening to the one or the male party, who feels as though they have that control and they are able to have their opinions voiced and heard, right? Um, Although this theory is in relation to gender, we can also look at this in terms of race as well, right? And I think that this theory directly relates to the situation at hand because the black male who's sitting in the front of the bus can be considered as the other, right? The person who feels as though they are lower class and are not associating with or are not associated with the one, right? They feel as though they don't have an opinion that can be heard or voiced, and they are isolated from the one, right? Whereas the passengers that are avoiding the black male in the front can be considered as the one, right? Where they think they are obligated to separate themselves from that black passenger, right? Because they think that they have higher power or they think that they have rights over the person who's sitting in the front, the person who's separated from the group. Um, and these can be directly related to that situation. And the reason why I think this is something that is racist and is a systemic injustice is because they are purposefully avoiding him only distinctly because of his race, the race that he is, the ethnicity that he is, right? And I think that they are purposefully doing this based on race. So this can be considered as purposefully racist, right? Not unintentionally, but intentionally racist towards that person who's sitting in the front of the bus, right? And I would like to give you some advice, Brad. Be the person that breaks that trend, right? Sit next to that person, or since COVID guidelines were being enforced, sit near that person, right? Try to have a conversation with them. Don't feel subjected to follow along with the racist passengers. Break the trend. Be the person that breaks that issue and almost prompts the other riders to evenly disperse themselves throughout the bus, right? Don't treat someone differently because of their skin color. Don't try to segregate because of their skin color. It's almost as if these people are thinking that segregation is still something that is done in the United States and is still something that's an issue in the United States, whereas this is something that we are attempting to get rid of, right? Something that we are attempting to fix. And the only way that this can be fixed is by breaking that trend, by sitting next to that person, by talking to them, by prompting conversation, by prompting a better reaction to sitting with someone of a different skin color on a bus ride, right? Or even just walking on the street, right? At a store, right? There's so many different places that this trend breaking can be applied, right? And this, you would be so much better off by breaking that trend because it would bring everybody together as one party rather than us being separated by our race or our ethnicity. I appreciate this entry, Brad, because this is something that is very enlightening, and something that needs to be addressed. Um, for those of you that are watching, please understand that this is an issue that needs to be resolved, right? And only in order to resolve this issue, the only way that it can be resolved is from your actions, right? Bring everybody together as one, break that trend, be the conversation starter, right? Don't allow yourself to be subjected to follow along with these people who are being racist, who are segregating. Be the one that makes the change. And I appreciate you guys for listening to this, but we're all out of time for today. I will join you guys next week for another segment, and I hope that everybody has a great week. Thank you all for listening.